Well, good evening, everybody. I hope you all are staying warm. And again, tonight's program is being recorded, and I will have the PDFs of the program also available for you. Well, again, good evening and welcome to the Laramie County Master Gardener program on pollinators. And when we come back to class, I do have a book for you on pollinators in Wyoming, and it's a very comprehensive book on the native bees that we have, honeybees, and native plants to grow for them, or just general plants to grow for them. So I do have a book for you for tonight's program. So does anyone have any questions or comments before we get going? Okay, I'm going to get class going then, and I'm going to share my screen, and so things are going to go blank here for a minute. Okay. If you can't see it, I'm sure you're going to let me know. So a number of years ago, one of the Laramie County Master Gardener students was Brenna Morasek, and she was at the time working for the Biodiversity Center or the Biodiversity Institute at UW. And so she put this program together and actually presented it in class, which was very cool. And she has graciously allowed me to continue to present it. So we're going to talk about mostly native bees. We'll talk just a tiny bit about honeybees, and then we'll also talk a little bit about butterflies and moths. So we'll try to cover as much of these wonderful little creatures that we can. Okay, so we're talking about a very specific group of insects, and they're in the order of Hymenoptera. And this includes bees, ants, wasps, and then there's all sorts of mimics that come into play in here. And there's actually some flies out of the Diphthera order that also look like bees, but they're not. So there's a huge area of little creatures that we see, but we don't recognize for who and what they are. And unfortunately, a lot of times bees or European honeybees or even our native bees get a really bad rap because of their bad boy cousins, the wasp. So we'll talk a little bit about wasps too. We'll toss those guys in here. We actually have native wasps, and then we have some not so nice native wasps. But what are bees best known for? Or pollinators. I mean, that's it. They're best known for pollinating. And actually, the native bees do a superior job over honeybees. The difference is that honeybees reward us with honey, and none of the rest of them do that. So there's 20,000 species of bees in the world, 6 families in Wyoming. And so we'll talk a little bit about them, and then we'll also talk about, again, butterflies, because can't leave them out, right? So bees have a complete metamorphosis. They lay an egg. The egg morphs into a larva. In the case of honeybees, it's capped. So a worker bee will come along and put a wax cap over the top of this, and then this bee continues to pupate and then emerges, chews its way out of this wax cap and emerges as an adult bee. Well, almost adult bee. So some of their characteristics, they have 2 pairs of wings. They have 3 body parts, 6 legs, 2 antennae, a proboscis, which is this specialized tongue. This is the proboscis here. A lot of butterflies have a proboscis, and this a lot of times gets mistaken for a stinger, and it's not. It's just an incredibly long mouth part and an incredibly long tongue that allows them to get down into a flower like this bumblebee is doing, where she's got her head buried into that flower, and so she's got a long proboscis or long tongue, and she can get in there and sip that nectar. So flowers have evolved with a lot of these bees, and of course the bees, I mean, it's been compatible, right? So there are some flowers that are just specialized for long-tongued bees or hummingbirds. Most of the bees that we're going to talk about, like flowers that are easy to get to, they don't have a long throat to them, like on this. They prefer shorter throat, and butterflies want to have something that they can land on. So like a landing pad. So think of like a daisy or a sunflower where they can just come in and land on that. And then bees also have, almost all of our native bees have this, where they have a little basket on their hind legs back here. It's kind of a pollen basket. And so they'll scrape out the pollen and they work it down their body and they stick it on the back of their legs. Okay. So there's a difference. I really want you all to learn how to identify bees versus flies versus wasps, because I get a lot of calls in the summer about, oh, I've got a swarm of bees and it's July or August, and it's like, yeah, honeybees are going to swarm in late May and early June, and then after that it's over with. But wasps will start to congregate more strongly later in the summer, and they love picnics. Wasps are carnivores, and so they're going to want to go for that ham sandwich that you're eating, or that charcuterie that's on the table. So that's a wasp. That's not a. So on bees, they have tall, narrow eyes. They actually have some eyes up on the top of their head too. They have 5 eyes. So there's 3 eyes up here, and then these 2 giant eyes here. And then a fly is only going to have 2 eyes, so really big 2 eyes. A wasp is also going to have 4 eyes, but see that's, I need to correct that. Sorry. A wasp is going to have a couple eyes up on top of its head, along with those big eyes right down there. Bees are going to have a really thick waist. They don't, when you think of that pinched in waist, that's almost always, there's some exceptions, but almost always going to be a wasp. Very skinny, tight, narrow little waist. Fly is going to have a thick waist. Not going to be able to see it very well, or at all. So you can see how, that's kind of the waist right there. That's kind of the waist right there. Definitely can tell. Very skinny. Wasp waist. Antennas. Another identifying factor. Medium long, flies are going to have a short antenna. Wasps are going to have another long antennae. So you can see here, that's fairly medium long. There's a fly, little tiny short thing, I mean really short. And then on the wasp, long. There are some bees that have long very long, almost as long as their body, antennae. Demeanor, temperament. Bees, generally gentle. Right? I've had enough of them land on me, both the orchard masons and the sweat bees and all those other guys. They're actually very gentle. Bumblebees, I've had them right on my shoulder. That's very cool. Freaks out my husband, but it's very cool. So bees, your native bees, your honeybees, gonna be pretty gentle, pretty chill creatures. They just want to pollinate. They just want to fly around and pollinate. So a bee is always going to be very gentle. Flies, gentle but annoying. Highly annoying. Wasp, commonly aggressive. Now, I've been around some wasps that have actually been pretty gentle. I know those have a tendency to be the native wasps, but I have been around some wasps that just nasty. So commonly aggressive, that's them. So what makes bees so great at pollination? Well, they're professionals at it, but they also need that pollen. Their food drive here. And your native bees are going to collect that pollen and take it back to the nest with them. So it's a food source. Same thing with honeybees. It's a food source. So they're professionals at this. They get in there, they're going to work that over, collect as much pollen as they can, but they're messy. And they're messy on purpose because they need to pollinate that flower, right? We want fruit. So they're messy for a reason. So messy, that's a European honeybee right there. Very messy, but that's okay because that's how they get the job done. And then she'll groom herself, put all that pollen on her back legs. Bees, all of our native bees, they are athletes. They are elite athletes. And so they need carbohydrates. They need that sugar. So the nectar is their source of carbohydrates, their sugar, their energy, and they're after that too. And so when you have flowers that don't have any reward of nectar, it's cheating those bees out of a meal. So try to when you buy flowers, when you out shopping for them or ordering them, make sure that there's that reward of nectar, that the flowers are actually multitaskers, so that they've got pollen as a source of protein, but they also have that nectar. So they'll take that pollen, that protein, put it all in a ball, and so the little native bees store that for their larvae. European honeybees make what's called a bee bread, and so that's also a source of like winter food or during a dearth of nectar. That's their go-to source. Most of our native bees are going to be solitary. They usually have their own nest. They don't work together. They'll find a log with a hole in it, or maybe you've made a bee hotel for them, and so they'll take up and pack their babies in there. Most of them are underground, which I know sounds really odd, but all of our native bees, for the most part, have a hole in the ground, and that's where their nest is at. So not disturbing your garden excessively is really important. And if you see native bees or some insects coming out of the ground, that's probably native bees, so that you want to protect that. They like hollow reeds, like bamboo type hollow holes in woods, old tunnels that have been abandoned. You know, there's a ground squirrel, and you finally get rid of the ground squirrel. Well, your native bees are going to take up residency in there. They don't make honey and they don't make beeswax. They don't interact with their young. So they make a pollen ball. And, you know, they've collected all this pollen and now they make a ball out of it. They lay an egg on top of it, and you're on your own. Then we have communal bees, and these are going to be bumblebees. Each female shares a common nest, but they take care of their own eggs. So think of like an apartment building. And so the bumblebees have got you know, the female bumblebee will say, oh, this is my space over here, and I'm going to build my honey wells, and I'm going to put a pollen ball in there and an egg and a little bit of nectar, a little bit of honey for the larva when it hatches, and that's it. So that's a communal bee. So think of it, communal bees as like a big apartment complex, only typically it's underground. Then we have social bees, and those are European honeybees. Highly complex division of labor between the queen, the workers, and the drone. And even within the worker force, there's even further division of labor amongst them. When you have a honeybee hive, you have one queen. You're going to have, in a strong hive, probably 60,000 worker bees, and you're going to have 50 drones. And those drones are actually very important, and those are the males. And they'll actually, every morning they get up late, they sleep in, they get up and they'll go fly to a drone congregational area, just waiting for a virgin queen to come flying through. That's their whole day. That's their whole day. So European honeybees live in colonies, beehives, hollowed out trees, but they're going to be very social. Division of labor. Native bees, not so much. Everybody's on their own. Okay, some native bees. Mining and digger bees. And these are all bees that we have here in Wyoming. And some of them are very, very specialized. And you're only going to find them in certain areas, which is very, very interesting. And when we get to the alkali bee, I'll talk a little bit more about that one. So they're solitary or communal ground nests. So they'll share a nest. So if there's a pocket gopher or prairie dog or something that's died, and they'll take over that nest. Small, medium size. So we're talking like half an inch. So medium size. That's a big bee. When you're a specialist, most diverse in temperate and arid areas, so they don't like it really moist. Earliest emerging bees in the spring. So that means they're going to be out working and pollinating. So if you've got something, I've seen them on my caragana, my Siberian pea shrub, along with the bumblebees. I've seen them on my golden currants because they bloom in April. Anything that's blooming in April, these guys are going to be on it right away. 52 species, dull or black metallic. Pollen hairs on upper legs. And I know the pinned specimen is really hard to kind of go, oh yeah, no, sorry about that. Bumblebees. These guys are so cool. We do have some that are now endangered, which is really unfortunate. But these guys are big. And when you see one that's like an inch in size, that's going to be one of the worker bumblebees. But when you see one that is huge, looks like a C30, C130, you know, it's 2 inches, it's huge, that's going to be your queen. And she'll overwinter. They do have cold adaptation. I don't know about lately. This winter's been tough on them. But they do what's called buzz pollination, and they're incredibly important in tomato production. And so if you're trying to grow tomatoes in a high tunnel, honeybees are not your answer because in a greenhouse, honeybees just fail miserably. But a bumblebee doesn't orientate itself by the sun. And so a bumblebee will go in and it lands on the flower and it wants that pollen. It wants that reward of pollen. And like I said, they're messy. And so it vibrates its wings and throws pollen all over the place. Well, that's probably the most efficient way to pollinate a tomato flower versus a honeybee that's going to come in and be a little bit more neat and tidy and not pollinate it completely. So bumblebees are your specialists, especially in your vegetable garden and a tomato patch. They do carry pollen in baskets on the back legs, and you can see on this top picture here from Brenna that huge pollen basket there. And and she'll take that back in to her nest, and it'll go in one of these honey pots and put it in there and make a ball out of it. Put an egg, and then the queen will come by and lay an egg on it. So underground nests mostly. I've found a few underground nests here on my property, and I try to protect that as much as I can. We have 22 species known in Wyoming of different bumblebees. And one of the ways to identify them, and you can go online for bumblebee identification, but they're all going to have distinct stripes or bands on their back. And it can be in a whole different arrangement of yellow and orange and black, and then maybe even orange or rusty colored up on top of their thorax. So they're going to have, that's how you identify a bumblebee, is just by the stripes, the different stripes. Okay, bumblebee colony cycle. Again, they're sort of kind of social. They'll share a common nest. So they'll do kind of like the apartment complex approach to things. It's like, this is my little apartment, but I have a neighbor, and I have a neighbor on this side. And so that's kind of how they socialize, if you will. Queens are going to overwinter. So that big 2-inch long bee, she overwinters. Starts hitting flowers right away. This is why, it's like when you do a flower garden or your vegetable garden, you really should have stuff in there blooming from April to October. And that April time period is so important for native bees, because they're going to come in and they're going to want, they're hungry. They're looking for food. And then the worker bees, which are all females, again, they're the smaller ones. They're going to start visiting flowers too. They're going to start picking up pollen and nectar. They're going to be bringing it back to their apartment complex. And then there's drones. And again, they're a little bit smaller. They're going to have a drone congregation area, and they're going to wait for the queen at the end of the summer. And that's their life. They hang out in the drone congregation area and just drink nectar and whatever else and hang out. Okay, honeybees. Not native. They are Eurasian in nature, widely used in agriculture. I mean, huge. At this time of the year, thousands of colonies in California. It literally takes 4,000 truckloads, semi-truckloads of honeybees, and they start migrating in September and October to California. 4,000 semi-loads of honeybees to pollinate all the almonds in California. So that's any commercial operator, he's loading those bees and he's shipping them to California. From there, they'll go down to Texas, they'll go up to Washington State, start pollinating apple orchards, down to Texas for a whole bunch of other crops. So they travel a lot. They travel a lot. Only bee that produces excess honey. So here's my caveat to you guys. Be really careful where you purchase your honey. There are no labeling laws on honey. And that always surprises a lot of people, but there's no labeling laws. And so anyone can slap anything on that jar. And if you buy something in the grocery store that has the store brand name on it, like Great Value or Kroger or whatever, I guarantee you it's not pure honey. It's most likely been cut with high fructose corn syrup. So you really want to avoid off brands, store brands, and you want to go to a real beekeeper, a local beekeeper, and buy from a local beekeeper. Or Rice's honey is going to be what it says, and then Sue Bee honey is going to be what it says. So those two big companies are always going to produce pure honey. But if it says the store on it, And China produces giant quantities. I mean, just astronomically large amounts of honey, and they've been accused of, and they're still doing it, of dumping honey on the American market because we cannot produce enough honey to meet our needs. And every once in a while, I'll actually run into a bottle that's labeled and says "product of China" on it. So read the label. Look for country of origin on there. Your organic honeys, your certified organic honeys, are almost always going to come from Brazil. A lot of the Chinese honey gets shipped into the United States via Thailand, Korea, all sorts of sneaky places. So be real careful with foreign honey. And China has managed to ultra filter theirs, and so they actually take all the pollen out of it. Well, from a health perspective, that pollen is actually kind of important even in our diets because it's still a usable source of protein for us. So just be really careful where you buy your honey from, and I really strongly encourage to buy from a local beekeeper. Know your beekeeper. You're going to get good honey. Okay. Again, this is a very docile, very, very docile little animal. And when I've opened up my beehives, I've never really had a lot of problems. Okay, raw honey. So raw honey is just the honey that comes off that frame, and you've just cut the wax caps off, and now you're extracting the honey off of that frame, and that's raw honey. Raw honey is I want to say unfiltered, but that's not really quite correct. Raw honey has gone through a tiny bit of filtration just to get the the occasional dead bee and dead bee parts, get rid of that. So it's sieved, but not filtered to the point where you lose that pollen and you lose some of the other important things. And then what is that yellow bulb on the bee's leg right here? That is a pollen basket. So this bee, all the workers are females. She has been collecting pollen off these flowers, and she puts that pollen right there on that basket and packs it down. And then you can see the proboscis right here. This kind of tube-like thing is down in the flower, and she's looking for nectar. Okay, bumblebees versus honeybees. This really should be very easy. If you spend any amount of time out in your garden, you should be able to spot the difference between these two. Bumblebee, large and fuzzy, short to long. They're either going to be really big or medium size. An underground colony can have anywhere from 50 to 400 bumblebees in it. 400 would be huge. Only the queen overwinters. Very small amounts of honey, and that honey is really reserved for that egg when it hatches into a larva. There's its food right there. Declines, fewer flowers in nesting areas. That is our number one problem facing bees, is we just don't have enough flowers out there. So what a great excuse to go plant a flower garden. I want to help the bees. Go plant a flower garden. Can sting multiple times. I have never been stung by a bumblebee. I've had them on my shoulders. I've had them in my hands. Never been stung. Honeybees are going to be smaller, less hair. The tongue is shorter. They're a short tongue bee. A lot of bumblebees can have a very long proboscis or long tongue. The colonies can be huge, 60,000 bees in there. That's a very busy hive. When your hive, if you're doing any beekeeping, when your hive reaches this, you're doing splits, and that's where you're going to start making that hive a little smaller. You're going to get another queen and make another 5. Overwintering, we try. This is hard. It's getting harder to get her queens and workers to overwinter. The drones don't make it. The drones get kicked out. So come late September, October, the drones are all pushed out of the hive, and sorry guys, honey, there should be 60 to 80 pounds of honey produced by a strong hive. However, lots of problems with our honeybees, a lot of diseases, a lot of parasites. And then as far as stinging, they sting once and then it's a one-shot deal. Huge. So there's a lot of stuff, naturopathic products that revolve around the venom from honeybees. And there's eye drops, believe it or not, that have bee venom in them. And they work beautifully. You wouldn't think, right? Put bee venom in your eye, but this preparation is pretty amazing. And then a lot of people who have arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, will actually go to someone who works with bees, a naturopath, and do bee sting therapy on their joints to help that arthritis. Okay, longhorned bees. And it's reference to this antenna, very, very long antenna, almost as long as their body. Robust, dark and hairy, pale bands. Males have long antennas, long as the body. That's where they get their name. They could be solitary or communal ground nesters. Again, when you hear that term communal, think of an apartment complex, because they're really not going to help each other out. They like asters, sunflowers, and mallows. And I guarantee you, if you're growing any of these in your garden or you walked around on the prairie, you have seen the longhorn bee. Look closer and look for that long antenna, the really long antenna. Color-wise, they kind of want to blend in, but they do have long whitish hairs on them. So they're a hairy little bee with a long antenna. Squash bees. Okay, for all my vegetable gardeners out there, this is another reason to not ever use insecticides in your vegetable garden, because you need these guys. So, Paige, the longhorn beetles do live here in Wyoming. You can find them, and I have found them in my garden in the summer. I find them frequently. Squash bees, these guys are specialists. They are up before you are, and if you're up early, like 5:30 in the summer, to check on your squash or your vegetables, or just kind of wandering around, or maybe you're grazing in your vegetable patch, which is very cool, and you look into a squash flower and you see butts. You see insect butts. Don't just assume they're bad guys, because they're not. These are most likely to be your squash bees, and they're specialized in just pollinating squash, pumpkins, and gourds. That's their job. They're very short-lived. They're solitary ground nesters, and they're long and skinny. But you're going to grow squash. I guarantee you your squash is getting pollinated, even though you're going, I don't see any bees. And you're just not up early enough. Or you're seeing that and you're mistaking it for something else. But keep the insecticides out. That includes 7. 7's pretty nasty. Okay, leaf cutter bees. These little girls are amazingly fast. And I mean amazingly fast. And they're going to come in. And these are the ones that do that little circle. So you can see this on this leaf, this little circle cut. It takes them about 5-10 seconds. And they've got it, they roll it up and they fly off with it. And so they've got the pollen on their belly. They've got strong mandibles to cut that leaf. And then they like tubes, so they like hollow things. And so they're going to stuff something that's hollow, long, skinny, a tube you can make places just for leaf cutter bees. And how far do the bumble and squash bees search for pollen and nectar? How far? I'm not really sure what their flight distance is. Most of these guys, most of all these native bees are really, they're very localized. They're not going to fly miles. And I think the whole honeybee mythology that honeybee flies miles is just no. From what I have learned about honeybees, that's not even probable. A honeybee might fly half a mile on a good day. So they're searching for food, but they're not the long distance flyers that a lot of people think they are. Okay, leafcutter bees. I know you've all seen the results of these. You've found that notch, that big part of that leaf cut out on or ash trees, roses, lilacs. They like all of those. One year I had them going after some flowers in my flower bed, and it was kind of cool to see the notches. That I thought that was okay. But they like a bigger size tube. There's a whole business around leafcutter bees, and they're specialized in pollinating alfalfa. And in northern Wyoming, up in the Bighorn Basin, there are a lot of alfalfa growers. And so you'll be driving through that area and you'll see these big boxes, and they're not very deep. And they've got patterns on them in black and white. Well, those are leafcutter bee nests. So those are hotels. And so it's just very cool. But it's a whole business up there, and they buy, sell, trade leafcutter bees, and they also grow a lot of alfalfa seed up there. So they're very important to the industry. Yep. So this is a nest, a cutaway of a leafcutter bee nest, where it kind of looks like a big long cigar. And of course, this is pretty typical of what we see. And there's all the notches. This is pretty typical of what you would see with leafcutter bees. It does not hurt the plant. It absolutely does not hurt the plant. It's cosmetic in nature, but it's not going to set that plant or tree or shrub back. This damage appears totally different. This is most likely grasshopper, but again, it's cosmetic in nature, and don't worry about it. Okay, orchard mason bees. This is another bee that's big business, and especially in Utah, and there's actually an orchard mason bee organization. And they have little conferences and they get together. But these are the bees that you're going to run into in the orchards in Utah and a lot of orchards up in Washington State. So this is a very important bee to the fruit industry. Again, we kind of look at the honeybee as being the be-all to end-all for pollination, but that's not the case. These mason bees are going to do a better job of pollinating your trees than a honeybee. And they're going to work when it's cloudy out. They're going to work when it's cool out. They're not picky about the weather. But a European honeybee is very picky about the weather. No, these are not mud daubers. The mud daubers are a wasp. That's a wasp. Yep. These guys, the little mason bees, are little tiny guys. They come in colors. They carry the pollen on their belly. I put up bee hotels for them because I want them in my vegetable garden. Okay, sweat bees. These guys are pretty amazing. They're iridescent. They come in colors. You can see there's one looking out of its little hole in the ground. So they're a ground nester. Tiny, very tiny. The problem with them is that they like to buzz like in your face, and they're very zippy. And I even have a problem with that. I normally I don't care, but this is like, ooh. All they want to do is have a drink of your perspiration. They like sweat. They're called sweat bees for a reason. And they want to have a drink of your sweat. So wish they had a better food choice. Metallic green, black, red. Yeah, they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Nest in the ground again, like rotted wood. So I have a stack in my gardens throughout my property. I have little stacks of wood that I just leave alone. I know it's full of holes because it was elm trees, and these were the Chinese elms. And so they had an elm beetle that went after them, and so I got big holes. And so I know I've got bees in there. I know some of it's rotting, and this is where I'm trying to encourage having bees in my yard. So I have a couple areas a little messy, very docile. I've had them. I said I've let them land on me. I've never been stung. So don't be afraid of them. And I have a counterpart up in Park County, Bobby Holder, who is an amazing photographer, and this is one of her pictures. It's very cool. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and we're going to move to a different lecture. Okay. Can you all see this? Somehow I don't think I shared.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Let's try this again. Here we go. There, much better. I am now sharing. Okay. So I'm going to talk just a little bit more about honeybees in this lecture, just a little bit. But again, the number one problem facing all of our pollinators, doesn't matter if it's native bees, European honeybees, butterflies, moths, it doesn't matter. Number one problem is the loss of habitat. And there's just not enough flowers out there. And, you know, all these new subdivisions going in, there's a net loss of native prairie. And then I see all this corner to corner lawns. It's like, really? We don't have the water for it, corner to corner lawns. And it would just be nice to see a little bit more mindfulness towards doing a nice landscape that includes flowering plants and shrubs and flowering trees. And again, your goal is April to October. Totally doable. So again, this is kind of like giving you guys carte blanche to go out and buy flowers and plant more flowers. Build a big garden. So we're going to go back a little bit in history with the European honeybee, just a tiny bit. Back in 2006, beekeepers were noticing alarmingly that their colonies, their beehives were dead. The bees were either totally gone or there's a pile of dead bees. We still don't know this far into it. We still don't know what's causing colony collapse disorder because we still experience that. That hasn't gone away. But we kind of look at it as loss of habitat. The beekeeper's management practices. How is the beekeeper actually taking care of his bees or her bees? Very important. Pathogens, parasites. So there's two parasites on bees that are very noteworthy. One is the tracheid mite, which we've pretty much conquered. And the other one is the varroa mite. And the varroa mite is a tiny little parasite that attaches itself to the honeybee and just slowly drains the honeybee of energy. But that varroa mite carries at least 11 known viruses. And so if the honeybee manages to get rid of that varroa, that mite that's attached itself to her, that might have infected her with a virus. And a lot of those viruses are pretty deadly. Then there's the problem of insecticides. And I put insecticides way down on the bottom because from an agricultural perspective, crop people, your farmers and ranchers and your applicators, people who spray insecticides and pesticides, they're held to a much higher standard. They have to go through some schooling, they have to go through a test, they have to pass the test in order to get their applicator's license. So it's not trivial for someone to be a licensed applicator, and they have insurance and insurance requirements. So they have to be very, very careful. I'm not saying that they don't make mistakes, but they're held to a much higher standard. So I'm going to pick on homeowners, and that includes all of us, because we don't read the label. We just assume that it's a bad bug and go out and kill it. And so homeowners are the worst when it comes to insecticides. So my story on this one is, I did a yard call a number of years ago, and the guy had walked me through his garden, and he had pear slug damage. Well, pear slugs are the larvae of the sawfly. They look like little slugs, and they crawl across the leaf. And as they crawl across the leaf, they suck out the cytoplasm of that cell. And so then that cell dies, and so you have this mottled-looking leaf. It's pretty much cosmetic. Doesn't really do the plant any favors, but it's pretty much cosmetic. You can just spray these off, right? Well, this particular homeowner went out and bought 2 different types of insecticides that he thought he had insecticides. And he sprayed them, then went back and sprayed them again. And he called me out. And he's like, the damage isn't going to go away, right? Because it's now happened at the cellular level, but he was really thinking that the plant would heal itself. That's not how it works. But in the course of walking through his property, he had this just adorable little Maltese dog, little tiny white ball of fluff. And he started talking about his dog, and his dog had gotten really, really ill, and he took it to the vet, and they tested and tested and tested this dog. $1,000 vet bill later, they still don't know what hit the dog, what made the dog so sick. I mean, it was on the ground, and it was tremors and seizures and all sorts of things. So we get around, and I said, show me what you've been using. And he had bought 2 different labels of the same product. So he didn't read the ingredients, which tells me he didn't read the label, and he didn't know how to mix it. He ended up poisoning his dog by over applying his insecticides that did no good. He killed off the good insects. I guarantee you, he killed off butterflies and native insects, and he poisoned his dog. So all those insecticides are, for the most part, neurotoxins, and we will talk about those in the pesticide class. But you got to read the label, and homeowners are the worst because they don't read the label, because it's in 2.5 and it just goes on forever, right? So, okay, off my soapbox. Okay, this is the varroa mite, and this insect attaches itself to the back of a honeybee, and it will also get underneath these plates. And so there might actually be varroa mites underneath there, but the varroa mite's favorite place is right there in the back of that thorax, and that's where the bee's liver is at. And so it taps into the bee's liver and starts pulling out nutrients from that. So it's very, very insidious little parasite. Also finding a corresponding loss of native bees, including the bumblebee, and they have found bumblebees with varroa mites on them. So anyone who wants to become a beekeeper, you've got to be very, very careful with how you treat and control varroa mite with your honeybees, so that it doesn't jump over to your native bee population, to your bumblebees. Okay, so what's being done in Wyoming? Wyoming's honey industry, believe it or not, from the 2013 USDA National Statistics group, $6.5 million. So it's a pretty big industry here in Wyoming. Wyoming does have a managed pollinator protection plan. So that means that they have sat down, they wrote a big, thick book that goes out to all the pesticide applicators, the people who spray insecticides. And and kind of lay out the groundwork for trying to protect our bees, our native bees and our honeybees, and reducing pesticide exposure, support pollinator and forage habit. And so the good news is it's gone out to all the farmers and ranchers, and we know about this, but the homeowners still don't know about this. And so this is where it's really important as a master gardener to talk to your neighbors, friends, and family that, gotta do something, plant more flowers, use less insecticides. In Wyoming, we really don't need to use insecticides at all. For everyone who's from Michigan and Minnesota and Chicago and all that, we have a fraction of the insects, a fraction. You might hear one or two mosquitoes in a summer. That's how low our insect population can be. Okay. We also have apiary law. And so for all beekeepers, they need to register their hives. And so it's for 5 hives, I think it's 5 hives or less, it's free. It doesn't cost anything, but it puts you on the map. And that map tells other people, other beekeepers and chemical applicators, so farmers and ranchers, where your beehives are. So you can get notified if someone's going to be out spraying, and you can protect your bees. But it's also to control, limit, and prevent the spread of bee diseases, bee parasites, bee pests, control and limit the prevention of interference, proper feeding, and honey flow of established apiaries. So it protects the beekeeper, and that's the most important thing. So I have an apiary here on my property. It's registered, and I think I have a half a mile area that's mine. And if someone else wanted to try to come in and put hives out there, they couldn't, because it would be interfering with my honeybee operation. So Wyoming beekeepers are very well protected. And this is a good thing, because there's a lot of states that don't, and it's like you're on your own. Okay. There's also a national strategy to promote the health of the honeybee and other pollinators. This was released back in 2015. So this again is a federal level document on protecting the health of our pollinators. Okay, this national strategy to conduct research to understand, prevent, and recover from pollinator losses, expand public education, outreach, improve habitat. So this coming Saturday is Habitat Hero program. And this again meets some of these goals where we teach people how to develop more habitat and why this habitat is important. So the native bees are considered a keystone species, and that means that they're important for pollinating flowers that produce seed. And the seed feeds birds, and it feeds small mammals like your mice and your voles and those little guys. And then those little mammals feed bigger animals, and so it goes up the food chain. But they consider bees to be a keystone species in that they help produce that seed that feeds other animals. Okay, national strategy, develop public-private partnerships, advance the science of land management. They have actually achieved this, restore or enhance 7 million acres for land for pollinators over the next 5 years. BLM, National Grasslands and Forests, they've already achieved that, and they're trying to add more to that number. 7 million acres is big. So, monarch butterflies. This is another one of those conundrums, because we really are not on the monarch butterfly flyway. We're a little out of their path, but we do get some in here occasionally. We get a few that pop in. They're we normally see what's called the viceroy, which is a mimic. Kind of looks like the monarch, but it's not quite the monarch. It's smaller, has a little bit different pattern on it. But anyway, again, trying to restore habitat. So this big move on planting Asclepias, which is milkweed plant. And I've got a bunch of milkweed plant on my property, kind of unintentional and some intentional. And boy, once it gets going, it's called milkweed for a reason. And so I've given some to my neighbors, and so we'll have a little path of milkweed for whatever manages to come through that needs milkweed. At one time, my property was certified organic. So on certified organic, you don't ever use insecticides, herbicides, any of those. So that's not used out here at all. So, and most of the land, so the good news is most of the land in Wyoming is pretty darn close to certifiable organic, because very few people use any sort of insecticides, herbicides. Herbicides are probably used more often than anything else, but very, very little insecticides are used out here. We just don't have those pressures. Okay, so the tough one here is Mexico, trying to do more conservation down there. That's a hard place to do that. So on insecticides, I'm really trying to take insecticides away from you, and I really try harder in the pesticide class. But if you look on the new 7 and some of those guys, there's going to be a bee icon on those, and that's going to tell you whether it's safe or it's not safe. So look for the little bee icon, and then of course the label. Who knew this, right? How many of you knew this? The label is the law. It's a federal law. You have to read the label. It's federally required, but no one knows that. Okay, across the globe. So it's not just here in the United States. So we seem to get picked on a lot, but this is a global problem. Similar patterns of decline in wild and managed pollinators. So even the European honeybee over in Europe and Asia are having problems. Many governments and non-government organizations coming together to find a solution. And so some of those are the Intergovernmental Platform of Biodiversity and Ecosystems, International Bee Research Association, IBRIA. IBRIA is really a very powerful organization. The American Beekeeping Federation, that represents the United States, and they are a very strong, well-organized group. If you're going to become a beekeeper, I'd strongly encourage you to become a member of the American Beekeeping Federation. And almost every university in the United States and overseas is doing some level of bee or pollinator research. Here in Wyoming, Dr. Michael Dillon is doing research on high altitude bumblebees. Then we have the Biodiversity Institute, and they have their green roof, and they're doing a lot of research on native bees. So UW is doing some work. We're stepping up to the plate and helping out. And then I do the Wyoming Bee College Conference. And Colorado's doing a lot of work. Just globally, we're really looking to try to find the answer. But the bottom line, got to plant more flowers, and we got to use less insecticides. That's the two key things that are going to come out of this. Okay. All right, I've already talked about that. They're keystone species. Okay, again, we're talking about Hymenoptera. Again, these are flies, or not flies, wasp, ants, bees, sawflies. 130,000 species. They range in size, little tiny guys and little tiny ones. We have little hover, because these are flies. This is Diphthera or Diphthera. We have little hover flies. You want those in your garden, especially vegetable gardeners, or if you're doing roses or anything that gets aphids, you want these guys in there. Just plant alyssum. See, there again, there's the key. Just plant more flowers. And so there's, at UW, they're doing quite a bit of research on pollinator habitats and how they attract the good insects, the good ones, because the good guys a lot of times will go after the bad guys. And so they'll take out the bad ones and create a balance. Okay, we kind of talked about this. Okay, other pollinators, butterflies, moths, flies. Actually, my favorite pollinator is the bee fly, and it's a fly, but he's cute. He's really cute. So we'll see a picture of him. There's some wasps that pollinate. Not all wasps are bad guys. It's the European paper wasp or the mud daubers. Those wasps, those are the bad guys. Birds, hummingbirds, small mammals. When my dogs or cats run through my flower garden, they're pollinating, and even the wind. Think about corn. Corn is wind pollinated. So is hazelnuts. Hazelnuts are wind pollinated, and hazelnuts bloom in late February, right up there with elm trees. Elm trees bloom in late February, and they're all wind pollinated. Okay, native bees don't fit the stereotype image of a bee, and they're easily overlooked. The Xerces Society is amazing wealth of information. If you want more references and books on flowers, plants, native plants, this is a go-to place, the Xerces Society, and their books are worth buying and including in your library. Okay, about 4,000 species have been identified, cataloged, ranging in length from less than 1/8 of an inch to more than 1 inch. So talking tiny guys. They're going to vary in color. It's all across the rainbow. They can be shiny, metallic looking. They can have stripes. They can be fuzzy. So we overlook them a lot of times and don't really understand who they are. So this is why it's like plant more flowers, use less insecticides. Okay, solitary nesting. Again, they're going to nest in the ground, or if you make a bee hotel, they're going to live in the straws in a bee hotel or log that's got tunnels in it. Sometimes they'll create an apartment complex. It doesn't mean they're helping each other. They're just kind of there. Short-lived, very short-lived. It's a year. Live for about a year, so not very long. You see the active adult stage, 3 or 4 weeks, and that's it. These creatures spend the previous 11 months growing through the egg, larva, and pupa stage in brood cells or nest. So this is why, I say a lot of them are ground nesters. It's real important to not disturb the soil any more than necessary, especially if you've got a flower garden. Vegetable gardens, that's a little harder because I'm always rototilling mine up in the spring. But I'm also pretty careful, and I try to look. And if I find what I think is a bee nest, then I mask that off, and we don't rototill that area. Very sensitive pesticides. If you can smell that insecticide, they can too, and it's a lot of times that's all it takes to kill them. So they're very sensitive to even just the vapors. So I did a yard call. It's kind of like Tales from the Crypt, right? My yard call tales. It's kind of a multitasking yard call. Guy called me up there, and he's like, my honeybees are all dead. And so we walked around, and it's like, he's out in the county. And this was during the mountain pine beetle epidemic. And I'm like, did you have your trees sprayed? He says, yeah, but my trees are like 150 feet away from the beehive. And I'm like, nah, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. It's just, if you could smell the insecticide, that's all it takes to kill them. And if it got them on them, then they took that insecticide back into the hive. When they groom themselves, now they're ingesting it. They're sharing it with their female buddies. And that's all it takes to kill them. So it's pretty insidious. We don't think about all the different ways that this can happen. So again, I've been talking about these pollen balls. And so here's a native bee life cycle. So the queen has got a pollen ball down in a ground nest, and she's gonna lay a little egg on top of that pollen ball. Egg hatches. There's the larva. This is the larva's food source. It's going to pupate, and then typically next year it's going to emerge next spring as an adult. So this is anywhere from a 10 to 11 month cycle. So very, very long cycle. Okay, so native bees. They're going to be categorized into 2 groups. Can you drill holes in old stumps to make hives? Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I've done that too. I've laid some old snags down in my flower garden, kind of this decorative approach, and And so that's a bee hotel right there. Okay, native bees can be divided into two loose groups according to their forage habits. When you've got generalists, and then they just sort of go anywhere. Think of like your bumblebees, and they're just gonna kind of randomly go find a flower, find a tomato, find the squash plant, find something else. They're just generalists. They have a bigger food range. They're not picky eaters. Okay. Then you have specialists, and that goes back to that squash bee. Squash bee is definitely a specialist, and so that squash bee, very short-lived. It's only there to pollinate your squash, and I don't, for life, I don't know where they come from. I'm way out in the county, and I have squash bees. Did they blow in on the wind? I was like, I don't know. Okay, life cycle of these bee species are often closely tied to their host plant, and the adults will often emerge from the brood cell just when the plant is flowering. So I think that's a pretty amazing talent to emerge just as that plant is flowering, and so there's your food source. Okay, squash bees. There you go. Next time you look down into that squash, whether it's a zucchini, any of your summer squash, any of your winter squash, if you're growing gourds, any of that stuff, and you look down in there on that female plant or the male plant, and this is what you see. So this is on the male flower. These are your good guys, okay? You want these in your garden. Okay. Found the first few hours after sunrise, non-social, very specialized. Okay, bumblebee. Yeah, this is our generalist. I love bumblebees. They are just so gentle. They're just so fun to have around, and they just add so much to a garden. Again, at the end of the summer, only the fertilized queen survive to hibernate throughout the winter. And in the spring, she starts all over again. So again, they're ground nesters, typically ground nesters. Okay. She creates a pollen ball. It's got kind of a little honey pot, and it takes 4 to 5 weeks from egg to adult bumblebee. Half the time is spent as a larva feeding, the rest of the time pupa in a cocoon. And in a study done, found that the eggs laid by the queen, only 47% of the eggs go on to produce an adult bumblebee. So the mortality rate's pretty high. So again, this is be careful. Okay, another bumblebee. Again, I think these guys are just very cool. These guys are going to be active. I have to be a really warm February, but I typically start seeing them in April. I see them when my caragana starts to bloom. And as much as I don't like caragana, I have it, and I would plant it if I lost the caragana I have, just because I know that it supports these bumblebees. Again, orchard mason bees. These guys are beautiful. Worth having around, worth building a bee nest for. Not destructive. You'll see them. Sometimes you'll see them up against the house or making a nest along the eaves of the house. They're not destructive. They've just found a little nook where they can put their egg and their pollen ball. Okay, the size of the bee depends upon the size of the hole in which it grew. So if you got a tiny straw, it's going to be a tiny bee. If you got a little bit bigger straw, it's going to be a bigger bee. Males are smaller than females, have longer antennae, lighter colored hairs on their face. I've never come close enough to one to check that out. Females are going to have the scopa or the pollen basket, so they carry pollen around. But definitely need to have these guys in your garden. Not aggressive. Not aggressive. They're not going to sting. They're not going to sting unless you put your hand on it unintentionally or you step on it unintentionally, but they're just not Your native bees just are not aggressive. Okay, again, we talked about sweat bees. Large family, over 1,000 species. Common colors, and just all across the rainbow. Fast. Visit between 4 and 8 flowers per minute. So they're zipping along. They're not slow about it. They're generalists. They don't care what they go to. They nest underground. So again, don't, if you see a little hole in the ground, don't always assume that what you're seeing with that little mound is an anthill. It's not alone, are anthills. Bee fly, Bombilius major. This is a member of the Diptera family, so this is a true fly. But have you ever seen a fly that cute? I just think this is my favorite insect. This is little Bombilius major. Now, he's actually also important in the garden. And so when I see them in my garden, I get pretty happy about that. The adults only drink nectar. They don't have a stinger. They're just nectar drinkers. So they're looking for some to suck on. Now the larvae are parasitic and predaceous. And these larvae, so here's the cool thing, will go after aphids. They will go after grasshopper eggs. They will go after other beetle larvae. So they're beneficial. So when was the last time someone told you that there's a fly that's beneficial to your garden, and be careful with it and try to nurture them? Bombilius major, very cool. They don't sting, they're completely harmless. Their larvae go after aphids. Can't get any better than that, right? The alkali bee. So these guys, these are they like hard, high pH soils. And these are cultivated in Utah for their alfalfa fields, and they will actually go out into where they've got alkali bees, and they will make the soil a higher pH just for these bees, just to cultivate these bees. Been managed for over 50 years. It's the world's only intensively managed ground nesting bee. Almost no work other than make sure that the soil's got a high enough pH form and it's hard as a rock. That's the only thing this bee wants. Native to arid regions of the Rocky Mountains, and a really, really effective pollinator of alfalfa for alfalfa seed production. And these little guys, so you can see it looks like an anthill, right? It's not. It's an alkali bee nest, ground nest. So again, we can't always assume that everything we see is going to be something that falls under myth. I got a lot of anthills out here, and I watch them closely. For the most part, I leave them alone, and unless they're in my vegetable garden or my high tunnel, and then it's like, yeah, I don't want ants in there. So that's where I draw the line. But if I find them out, I find this in my driveway, that's great. There's another master gardener up by Gilcrest, the Gilcrest High School area or elementary school, and he had these all throughout his driveway, and he just felt really bad about having to drive on them because they were in his driveway, but they seemed to survive it. But he had a giant garden, and he relied on them for pollination. So not everything may seem to be what it is, right? These aren't ants, these are bees. Leafcutter bee, by now we all should know what a leafcutter bee damage looks like. Again, it's cosmetic, not gonna hurt the plant, and you're gonna get people that are gonna come to you and say, well, should I spray? Now, by the time you see the damage, the insect has come and is long gone. And these are such an important pollinator that to kill them off is just a huge disservice. Okay, again, they're solitary. Adults will live, the females live up to 2 months, so they're not long lived. 35 to 40 eggs during her lifetime. lives in a very distinct manner, making a smooth semicircular cut. So you're always going to see that. Virginia creeper, roses, green ash, lilacs, a few other plants. So if you see it, just kind of go, oh yeah, I've got good guys in my garden. Injury is often only a minor curiosity. Okay, cosmetic. Let's see if I've got a picture. We'll jump to butterflies since we've talked about that. Butterflies. So this is a case of where a butterfly needs a host plant for its larva, and then it needs a nectar plant for itself. So that host plant is where the butterfly, she's going to lay her eggs. The eggs are going to hatch into larvae, and then the larvae are going to eat that plant. So if you want swallowtails, the yellow swallowtails in your garden, plant dill. Plant dillweed. It's a great herb, great multitasking herb. But the female swallowtail lays her eggs on the dill. They hatch, they grow, they consume quite a bit of your dill, so grow a lot of it and share it, just share it. They also need a nectar plant to drink from. And so again, butterflies want something that's a landing pad so they can land on it and walk around on top of it. So think of like your asters and your daisies. It takes 10 to 14 days for an egg to hatch into a larva, and only 1% survive. That's a scary number. So if she's laid 100 eggs, 1% of that's going to survive. So this is why being careful and knowing what you're looking at is very, very important. Milkweed, hackberry trees. Hackberry trees are important. You see hackberry nipple gall on the leaves. It's just cosmetic. Don't worry about it. Okay, build a butterfly garden. There is a North American Butterfly Association. And again, my counterpart up in Park County is very active with this group. And so every summer she'll have a butterfly count. So her and a bunch of master gardeners will get together and they'll go out and look for butterflies and count butterflies and moths. So it's kind of a fun group. Okay. Bee habitat. Again, 70% nest in the ground. They need access to the soil surface to dig their nest. Female excavates a tunnel for brood cells. So again, it's like down in this lawn. I know, and in this lawn over here, I know how to calls on that. And people want to know what sort of insecticide to use to get rid of this so they can have the perfect lawn. And we need to get rid of that. Really do. Okay, shelter. Nesting requirements are different for each species. But leaves and bare or partially vegetated soil in your garden. You don't want to let water puddle or pool or standing water. It's kind of hard in Wyoming, but so you want to be careful with that. Hollow branches, if you bamboo, there's not a lot of plants out here that have hollow branches, but you can get bamboo and cut it to length. Clump grass. I'm not a big fan of the Karl Foresters, but there's other clump grass that's just very beautiful. You've got blue grama, cultivated variety of blue grama, crested wheat, a bunch of grasses that form clumps. They can be decorative. And so these bees will actually burrow underneath and into them and have a nest underneath there. Flowers should be blooming April to October. Bee hotels. So the nest blocks, the holes can be, I kind of vary the holes because I don't ever know what that bee really wants, what she wants. So anywhere from 30 seconds to 3/8 and I go about 4 inches deep. And at the end of this, when they start to hatch and come flying out, I try to have a whole new bee hotel ready to go because I want them to go into fresh wood. And at anything that doesn't hatch out or come out in the first part of spring, it's probably dead. And so I'm going to get rid of it because I don't want any diseases or pathogens to go from one generation to the next. Do not use treated wood. Kind of goes without saying. All that treated wood is some sort of an arsenic. So we want to be careful with that. Front hole should be facing east, southeast. You want to avoid the afternoon sun, and you want them about 18 inches off the ground. Bee hotels. You can get pretty darn creative with bee hotels. I've done some bee hotels with kids, and I've used plastic straws, and the bees do not like plastic. So paper straws work better. Hard to find paper straws. Plastic seems to be, the go-to on that. But you can order these. You can order these guys. A lot of places to order them. Easy to make, and if you're at all handy with a little saw or a drill, hammer, screwdriver, whatever, they're all just really easy and they're fun to make. So what number of bees are you required to register? So if we're talking about bee hives, 1. If you have 1 hive, then you need to have it registered. Doesn't cost you anything. You go through the Wyoming Department of Agriculture, and they'll have a whole licensing section. Apiary, they have a whole apiary section because they take the whole beekeeping thing very seriously here. Anyway, bee hotels. Easy to make, easy to use. You want them about 18 inches off the ground. This is, if someone plunks it on the ground, it's too low. I'd put it up on a rock. But you will be rewarded. You'll see just a hub of activity. If you build it, they will come syndrome. Okay. Plan for bees in the garden. Plant flowers and shrubs. Eliminate your pesticides. So what to plant? Linden trees. That is a big one. Back in Missouri, back east, linden trees, the Tilia species, also called basswood for all those back east. They start blooming in June. It's a cream-colored flower. It has a very spicy fragrance to it. It's just absolutely clove, cinnamon, warm smell. It's really wonderful. But it'll just be full of bees, native bees, butterflies will be in there, everything. It's just a hub of activity. Okay, Russian olives. If you have a Russian olive on your property, leave it. It's okay. Unless you're up in the Bighorn Basin, then it's not okay. They are a banned tree now. So we can't bring them in and plant them anymore. But if you've got them on your property, leave them because they also bloom in June. And they're also a source of nectar and pollen for bees, so they're very important. Pussy willows, you're going to want to plant pussy willows in some place, so go back to your site analysis because pussy willows are going to want cooler, moist soil. Although I have seen them grow in some very hostile locations, but for the most part, they're going to want cool, moist soil and a little bit of protection from the wind. But they have a lot of pollen, a lot of pollen. So there's a reward of that for the bees. Tartarian, any of your maples, Tartarian maples, hot wings maple, especially the hot wings maple, because they do so well here. They bloom in May and they have a white flower on them. And there again is a good source of pollen for these bees. And then of course that flower turns into those little samaras, the wing seeds. Ohio buckeye, those do well here. So can you plant Russian olives if you cultivate the seed and you already have 20 Russian olives? No, Mike, no one is going to come out into your yard and tell you to get rid of them. This is one of those Wyoming laws that one size doesn't fit much other than the Bighorn Basin. And if you go up into the Bighorn Basin, you'll understand why the Russian olive tree is banned, because it's taking over native land and native pastures, and it's edging out native grass, native trees, and it is a really serious problem up in the Bighorn Basin. But down here, because we don't have the water, it's not quite the problem. So if you've got them and you want to plant them, no one's going to come and take them away from you or tell them to cut them down. But from a beekeeper's perspective, they're important. They're important to what you're doing, which is why it's such a big battle up in the Bighorn Basin, because there's a lot of apiaries up there. And they're trying to protect that honey flow. Ohio Buckeyes, they do well here. They're slow growers. They're really slow, but they're hardy. Apple trees, crab apples, so all of these flowers. So for my beekeeper wannabes, these guys here are what cause a sudden flush of growth in the beehive, because now the queens lay more eggs and they're hatching, and all of a sudden 21 days after all this starts, poof, you've got your bees are swarming because they've outgrown the hive. So you have to be really careful and watch it very, very carefully. And so herbs, if you don't want all those trees, herb gardens, the bees will be just so ecstatic in your garden if you've got herbs. And the list of herbs is huge. And when we go to the herb class, everyone's going to get one of my favorite catalogs on herbs. And you're going to learn a lot just from this catalog again. But Susan Allen will be in it, so we'll talk more about herbs. But when they do bloom, especially basil, it's just going to be covered with bees. Borage has got this beautiful sky blue flower on it that hangs down almost like shooting star type flower. Likes more alkaline soil, does really well in alkaline soils. Lemon balm, thyme, chives, hyssop, roses. The list is huge. For a while I had onions that I had forgotten to pull out, and so they perennialized and they bloomed every year. Big white globes. And they were in the wrong place, but I left them. It's like, well, pick and choose your battles, right? So I just left it alone. And the bees, when they bloomed, were all over them. Okay, in a wild garden. So not everyone wants to have a neat and tidy garden. I sympathize with that. Clovers, the red and white clover, Trifolium, Hortensis, it started to come back in popularity for lawns, which I think is very, very nice, because in lawns in town, the first thing that blooms are dandelions. And dandelions are so beneficial to all our pollinators, our native pollinators and our butterflies. That's the first thing a lot of those guys go to. That's their first food source. And yet we're out there trying to kill off dandelions. And a dandelion, every part of it is edible. Roasted dandelion root tea is marvelous. Dandelion greens, salads, it's all just, it's a wonderful food source for everybody. Russian sage, Perovsky. This is one we watch close because we don't want it to jump. We don't want it to escape cultivation. So we're kind of careful about it. There's some varieties now that don't quite jump. If you go downtown Cheyenne, there's Russian sage trying to grow in the cracks of the sidewalk. That's how aggressive it can be. If it gets water, it'll grow 8 feet tall. If you don't water it, it'll stay very modest, about 4 feet. So this one that you have to, we kind of love it, and then we kind of be careful with it. Catnip, any of the catnip species, sunflowers, buckwheat. I have never found buckwheat to be get out of control. I've had it on my property, and I was hoping that it would self-seed and kind of establish itself, and it just never did. We just don't have the water for it. Any of your Veronicas, any of your salvias in California, fields and fields of salvia, and those salvia is called sage, not to be confused with sagebrush, because there's no pollinator value to sagebrush. But the salvias are having in your flower garden. You just have to be careful. You get a zone 4 salvia, and beautiful. They bring a lot to the flower garden, to your perennial flower garden. Let's do the Veronicas. Eclipsia, your milkweeds, blanket flower, Gaillardias, Seldago, any of the Seldagos, and they come in different sizes. And you can get ones that like 4 or 5 feet tall, and little ones that stay small. But they'll also be loaded with pollinators. And so, I keep saying that you have to have something that goes from April to October. So we've got fall asters, your fall blooming asters, rabbit bush. Rabbit bush, you don't have to, some of the rabbit bush is really big and ugly. It can get big and ugly. There's a dwarf one that only gets 18 inches tall. It kind of forms this cool little ball and stays neat and tidy. Perfect for perennial gardens, just perfect. And it'll be loaded in the fall. It blooms yellow, and it'll be just loaded with pollinators in the fall. Liathris, again, the salvias, penstemons, sedums. Sedums are, again, another one of those that you can get different sedums, different heights. Some are little tiny guys, some of them are big. And they'll go from April to October. So just if all you ever wanted to plant was sedums, there's your answer for April to October blooming. And those guys are tough and hardy. They're I don't have a deer problem, but we did plant some at the base one year, and they survived the test of the antelope. Okay, talked about that. Again, anything from the Xerces Society, and you just go online and pick these guys up, and they have just a whole host of books, attracting butterflies, attracting pollinators. So there's a lot that they have to offer. I have not seen rabbits go after my sedum. I watch that pretty close because I've got enough trees that I'm concerned about my trees, because rabbits will eat the bark off your tree. But I haven't seen them go after sedum, and it may be just too thick of a leaf and just too tough for them, because they, if you think about what rabbits like, they blades of grass, your salad garden, that sort of thing. I think a sedum is just too thick and tough for them to like. And let's see. Yeah, the Xerces Society has a great book for gardening for butterflies. Habitat design, I mean, everything there that you would want for doing a butterfly garden. And this is swallowtail. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to jump to my butterfly and moth version. Okay, again, my friend Bobby Holder up in Park County, again, quite the photographer. She took most of the pictures in this lecture for me. It doesn't want to be stable. So can you all see my PowerPoint lecture as it is? Yes, no? Mike, yeah? Okay. It doesn't want to. This one. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. So Lucia Tronstead is over at UW, and she's done a lot of work with pollinator habitats, and especially in their application to farmers and ranchers. And so at my place, I grow alfalfa. And we've put into pollinator habitats. Pollinator habitats out in the prairie are short-lived. Sadly, they're expensive to put in, but they're short-lived, maybe 3 or 4 years. And go into a drought and poof, they're gone. So, but Lucia's done a tremendous amount of research on that relationship between invertebrates and good bugs, bad bugs. And there's a couple other ladies there at UW. So there is quite a bit of research going on. It's just very quiet, which is unfortunate. It's how a lot of research is. It's pretty quiet. Okay, so now we're in the order of Lepidoptera, butterflies and moths. Adults have wings covered with scales. 170,000 species worldwide. Lots here, 895 species in Wyoming, 227 butterfly species, and 668 moth species. So we have more moths than just the Miller moth, which is highly annoying. And so we have more than just the moth that lays the gypsy moth, the tussock moth. We have some good guys too. Okay, butterflies versus moths. Butterflies are going to have a club-shaped antenna. So if you look down here on this swallowtail, that very end of that antenna is a club-shaped. So there's like a knob up there. Moths are going to have feathery. So this moth over here, you can kind of see little hairs coming off of it. A butterfly is going to rest with its wings closed, and a moth is going to rest with its wings open. A butterfly is going to be a lot brighter. A moth is going to be a lot duller. Butterflies are going to be active during the day, and moths are going to be active at night. Butterfly is going to have just a proboscis, which again is that long mouth part that's a tube, that kind of long tongue that rolls up, unrolls. You can see the proboscis on this swallowtail right here. Moths may or may not have a proboscis. Cocoon, or the butterfly is going to hang from vegetation, or a moth that's going to be on the ground or underground. So you'd think that some predator could pick that up and have it as a snack. Butterflies finding mates, visual, splashy, not splashy, so they rely on pheromones. Okay, again, this is where it gets tricky. They're going to lay their eggs on the underside of a leaf, maybe even the top side of a leaf. And again, a lot of times I'll see that on something in my place and I'll go, well, good or bad. I don't know if it's good or bad, because there's not a real good way to identify butterfly and moth eggs versus bad guy eggs. So I usually just leave it alone. And I'll deal with the consequences later, but I'd rather err on the side that this might be a good guy. Okay, eggs become this big guy, big caterpillar. Caterpillar then goes into metamorphosis and spins a cocoon, and then poof, we have a butterfly, in this case a monarch. So if you ever see a striped larva like this, the swallowtail larva can also kind of mimic that. Okay, protection from predators. This is where it gets challenging for them. Caterpillars are going to camouflage with surroundings. So the best example of this is the tomato hornworm. So any of my tomato growers, I guarantee you've had tomato hornworms at some time or the other. And that hornworm is almost invisible. And you're just going to see the damage, or you're going to see the frets, one or the other. And people who are colorblind, oddly enough, can see a tomato hornworm larva in just a heartbeat. Just find it right away. But The rest of us, their camouflage is almost perfect. Some caterpillars are going to be poisonous, and they advertise that with bright colors. Then there's some that mimic that. They're going to steal that concept. They're not poisonous, but they have bright colors. Hairy makes them unpalatable to a bird. Formidable. I have captured some polyphemus moth larvae, and they just downright aggressive, and they'll try to attack you. So it's kind of interesting. They stand up for themselves. Camouflage in the pupa stage, again, poisonous, advertising with bright colors. Adults camouflage your moths. Poisonous, advertised with bright colors. That's your monarch. Monarch butterfly is very toxic to birds, and so birds have learned to avoid that one. So there's some pretty cool camouflage there. That one looks like a leaf. It's not. And then, of course, our monarch. Okay. So moths and bats. So getting tales from the crypt. Did have someone bring me a bat once. Brought it in a big tube. He says, "Look what I got. What do you want me to do with it?" And so I took it up to the botanic gardens and let it loose. So moths can outhear a bat, and a moth can hear a bat coming and take cover and avoid those predators. And so here's the antenna on a moth, and you can see those feathery antennas. So they're very receptive to ultrasonic calls of the bat. So they hear at a higher frequency, and so that's another way that they avoid becoming what's for dinner. Okay. Caterpillars use specific host plants. Some are specialists, some are more generalist. The white-lined sphinx is a generalist. And so the sphinx moth, this is the one that looks like a gray moth. And sometimes it has a big, like an eye in the middle of its forehead. It's just coloring this. It's pattern. It's not an eye. But a sphinx moth has the ability to hover and fly like a hummingbird. But these are the guys that lay their eggs on your tomato plant to become a tomato hornworm. But they like a moth. Again, moths are more nocturnal, and so they like night blooming plants. So like your 4 o'clocks, primrose, elms. You know, it's not really a problem out here because elms bloom in February. Grapes do bloom, little tiny, inconspicuous. Tomatoes, purslane, fuchsia. So a lot of them are, I don't see a lot of this guy. This is a specialist, and I don't see a lot of this. But this is what that larva would morph into. And again, I'd probably just mostly ignore it because the damage is so inconsequential. There's your sphinx moth. This is the guy that can hover like a hummingbird. Okay. So they do act as pollinators, but they're not very effective. You know, they're not quite at the native bee level. They do pollinate when they're feeding on a plant, but again, keep in mind they like flowers that are more open, and so they like sunflowers and asters and daisies, and that's what they're going to be attracted to. This guy is a wavy lined emerald moth, and very beautiful. It just about glows. It's almost a turquoise green, very beautiful. It's native, very cool. Again, likes to have a place to perch, clusters of flowers. They want flowers that are open during the day. Provide nectar, especially hidden nectar. So they like to go probe for that nectar. And so if you're trying to attract your butterflies, again, they want to have a place to perch. Moths, usually night pollinators. And so plants that open up at night rely on a sense of smell. So again, flowers that bloom at night have a tendency to be very fragrant. They also want to plant a flower that provides a good perch, open late afternoon at night, provide nectar. So you're just not going to get away from having one or the other. And there are some moths that are absolutely amazing. I have, in 2020, I had a black witch moth show up in my garden. And this moth was 6 inches from wingtip to wingtip, 6 inches, big, big, big moth. And Paige, yep. So when your internet cuts in and out like that, it's a bandwidth problem. And so if you turn off things like your phone, push your phone into airplane mode. So if you're not using it, put it in airplane mode. And any other computers, airplane mode, and that'll give you back your bandwidth. Yeah, I've been doing this. 2020 really made me get a little more tech savvy than I wanted to. Okay. Trying to get the monarch on the endangered species list. I don't know if they're going to do that, but it's definitely on a lot of other activist lists for being endangered. You can find them in Wyoming. They're not real common. Plant milkweed if you want to help them. Lays their eggs along the migration route. They don't actually make a flight in 1 year from Mexico to California. They're just not that long lived, but they lay their eggs along the migration route. So that egg hatches, becomes a caterpillar, right? Morphize, becomes a butterfly, and then it continues on that next generation. So it's kind of hop skipping along. But anyway, there's loss of overwintering grounds, loss of the host plants. Again, milkweed is called a weed for a reason, and it can be quite obnoxious. This is the monarch's flight path. You can see we're just a little bit kind of in its territory, but not a lot. You might see them if you plant more flowers. I see viceroys. Okay. Skippers. We have a lot of skippers, and they often lack that club on their tip of antenna, but they're curved, they're hairy, they overwinter as a larva, and they're called skippers because of their flight patterns. So they kind of zigzag around. We do have a lot of them here in Wyoming. Again, some of them are really pretty. This is the dusty blue. This is a little bit yellow. So the swallowtails, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. 8 species in Wyoming, 600 species were worldwide. Adults, large, bright, colorified butterflies, often with tails on their hind wings. So there's come as yellow, they come in black, they come in different colors. Or when it's pupa. Again, if you want more swallowtails in your garden, again, flowers that they can perch on, but plant dill. That's their larva host plant. The sulfurs, clouded sulfurs, 15 species here in Wyoming. Again, yellow, can't miss that one. Really pretty. Overwinter is a pupa. The males can be a little bit different color, but again, you're going to have that really pretty yellow. The gossamer wings. This one, the hair streaks, Sheridan hair streak, and the Melissa blue. I think that's pretty special when I see these in my garden. And this has kind of an interesting self-defense mechanism where the caterpillars have a honeydew gland that ants milk, and in return the ants protect the caterpillars. So using another insect as your guard is pretty cool. It's just like peonies. I get calls all the time about, how do I kill the ants on my peonies? And it's like, you don't. It's a symbiotic relationship. And the peony has evolved to attract ants on purpose. And so a peony wants ants on that bulb, on that flower bud, to protect it from aphids. This is protection. So, yeah, not everything in the insect world is what it seems. Oh, metal marks. A Mormon metal mark, and then larva's purple with yellow spots and tufts of hair. So being able to identify the larva back to the adult is important so that you don't inadvertently kill the good guy thinking it's a bad guy when it's not. But that's very beautiful. Clubbed antenna. Okay. Brush-footed butterflies. So it's going to have, and this isn't the best picture, but it's going to have more of a flat pad on its foot so that it's kind of like a landing type thing. There's a lot of insects that have brush foot feet on them just to help them land and get around. Excellent flyers. Gotta be if you live in Wyoming, right? So it's a butterfly. It's got the clubbed antenna. The wings are back. Okay. Does have an interesting mouth part. So there's the proboscis right there. It's coiled up inside its head. Big eyes. They never stand still long enough that I can get that close to look at them. So it takes someone that's a really good photographer to do this. So some other butterflies that we have, the green comma, and look at the wings on this guy. They're really cut out. He's got a little tail back here. Calliope fritillary, kind of a dusky blue. The red admiral, painted ladies. It's got the blue and it's got this peachy salmon color. It's got yellow. So it earns its name as a painted lady. Then we got the sphinx moth or the hummingbird moth. And these guys are hummingbird mimics. They fly very, very quickly. They dart and zip around, and they are a lot of times mistaken for hummingbirds. And they're a big moth. They're a very, very big moth. They come out at night. And if you like these guys, by all means, 4 o'clocks are going to be their favorites. Morning glories, anything that's going to bloom at night or bloom in the evening is their favorite. Okay, checker spot. Okay, this is another Wyoming butterfly, clubbed antenna. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay, this is what I have for tonight's class. And again, I have a book to hand out. And so hopefully we'll get to meet on Wednesday. The weather will be more cooperative and won't be quite the deep freeze. What are miller moths for? Do they have a purpose? I'm sure they do. So miller moths. Miller moths lay their eggs in undisturbed lawns and prairies. They hatch in mid-spring. They like cool weather. So they're going to fly in mass in the cool weather. They migrate to the mountains. And then when the mountains get too cool, they migrate back down and then they lay their eggs in undisturbed prairie or lawns. So this is a tough one. I'm sure they feed a lot of birds, and I'm sure that's their purpose, is to feed birds. Other than that, they just annoy the heck out of people. Any other questions, thoughts? Do you reuse your bee hotel every year or start a new one each year? I try to have two bee hotels going. So I'll have made new blocks of wood, drilled the holes in them. If something doesn't come out of that hole or there's a low hatch rate, then I get rid of that block and I put a fresh block in. And I try to do it pretty quickly because they hatch fast. The males are the first one to hatch, the first ones that come out, and then the females are after that. So yeah, I don't start a new one each year if I don't have to, but I try to be very mindful about the sanitation with the bee hotel, because I don't want to make them sick because I haven't gotten rid of, because there's parasites in there. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? So short night. That's okay. It's cold out. I'm glad we don't have to travel. I'm sure you all are happy you don't have to travel too. Okay. If not, I will see you all on Wednesday. I still have the vegetable garden assignment to hand out. I'd like to talk a little bit more about vegetables, but that's okay. And I'll get you the book. And then Wednesday night is Scott Shell. Hopefully he can make it over from Laramie. If not, we'll go Zoom. So anyway, good night. Good night, everybody. Stay warm.
Bye.
Good night, thank you.